Welcome to the Kenny Hack.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Kenny Hack. This will be the third video in a rotary jig series. On this one here, I'm going to be kind of going over, this is from the dollar store, just a standard coffee mug. These ones are actually probably a lot better to use than these tapered ones, just because it'll be easier to square the mug up to the laser than these tapered glasses. So we're going to be kind of going over the jig setup for this mug, and this is also from the dollar store. This is like the 25-ounce larger mug than the pint glass, so it takes a little different setup from this, from a standard. For this first one, this is actually just the stock 3-inch Oatly test plug, and it fits perfectly inside of there. All I did to make this work, now like since this image here, this is kind of the Norton white tile method done on this ceramic mug, and we'll go, like, to be able to get the image this close to the top, I had to put in another gap filler in here so the laser head could get this far over. And this is just the spacer discs out of the 2-inch Oatly setup. Now the 2-inch ones have a smaller diameter bolt. All I did, they're solid plastic, so I just took a drill and drilled them out so they're able to go onto the larger bolt that is for the 3-inch and the 4-inch. So I could just use them 2 discs as a spacer just to get more room, and also buy a longer bolt that just so if you need to add more spacers to this to get it long enough, like say it was a really short coffee mug and you needed to get it all the way down to here, well, you're not going to want to stack up a whole bunch of magnets to reach that far. You can, but it's better just to put in more spacer rings and shift it over that way. So get yourself, this is probably way longer than I needed. I think this is either a 5-inch or 6-inch bolt. When I bought all this materials, I wasn't really sure of what kind of setups I was going to be using, so I just got one I knew would be plenty long enough for anything. So this is the basic setup for that. It just goes in there, screw it in until it's tight. Then I have a couple magnets in here to shift the wood out onto the rollers, and then get it set where the spacing's right, and the leveling rollers are just catching the edge of the mug. You have to be careful that you don't catch the edge of the handle here. So I mean, you got to have pretty close spacing. But as you can see, the mug rotates just fine. Clears the handles. This is the same 6 3/4-inch disc that I used on the regular pint glasses. Also works for this mug. And for those of you who haven't seen the Norton white tile method, basically like anything ceramic, you can clean off the ceramic with some acetone and remove, like there's usually like a little fine thin film over the ceramic from the glazing. Clean it with acetone. You spray paint it with either like white paint. This I used heirloom white spray paint, usually Rust-Oleum 2X. Just give it a nice even coating. And like I said in the previous ones, this was normally a 4-inch by 4-inch image, and since the diameter of this disc is twice the size of this cup, I had to stretch the image to a 4-inch by 8-inch image. I resized all of that in GIMP, set it to 318 dpi, and then imported that into Lightburn. Then you rotate the image to vertical, and you have to flip it when you're doing rotary work, otherwise the image will get reversed. And since now the native resolution on this was 318, since this diameter is half this diameter, you can cut the image in Lightburn to half. So this was only set to, instead of a 0.08 lines per inch or millimeter, it was set to a 0.16. So it's just how the math works. As this is turning, this is seeing, at this diameter, it's seeing double the DPI of what this is seeing. So to get 318 here, I needed 158 at here. So, and overall it worked pretty well. Probably gonna be hard to see on this video. I was trying different speeds and different dithering programs, just seeing which would work better. And by the time I got done, I was kind of happiest with using the grayscale. Now, most people say don't use grayscale for doing the Norton white tile method. And on most machines I agree, but with the Ortur Pro, I've actually had pretty good luck using the grayscale. And I'm still playing around with it. I haven't really got it mastered yet. It takes a little different kind of setup to get it to work properly, and I'll maybe go over that in a future video of how I set up Lightburn to get it to work. And I think you get a lot better detail using the grayscale than any of the dithering patterns, but it takes a little more work to do.
Here's a little more of a close-up on that mug after all the excess paint was cleaned off with acetone. This is a permanently burned in image on the ceramic.
For the next setup, we'll be going over, this is the 25-ounce mug. Now, normally, like I said in the last video, the standard 3-inch mug or test plug will not swell up big enough to fill the gap. So what I used, this is a Sioux Chief brand test plug. These are also available at most of your hardware stores. Now these ones are a little more expensive, but I didn't really like how they work. They don't seem like when you tighten them up they swell. They have as much working radius as what the Oatleys did, and just the way, like, it has this little 90-degree shoulder that works to push right up against the rim, but I still wasn't confident that I was getting the cup in there square as I do with the Oatley, where I can push the edge of the glass all the way up against that flat flange. But what these are good for is I really like their rubber gasket. And you see this one is cut and part of it removed. And what you're going to do here, this is going to make up your gap that you can't fill. So you want to be very careful when you cut these things down. Cut them long to start and just keep nipping away at it until you get a pretty good tight fit. You don't want a big gap in there. Otherwise, when you screw this thing on and it starts to expand in here, if this has got a big gap, it'll start expanding and pushing that gap out and starts trying to push the gasket out. Trust me, I know from experience. I already screwed up one, had to go buy another one just to get the rubber out of it. So be careful when you're cutting these things. These ones here run about 10 bucks. They're a little more expensive than the Oatleys, and you're really only needing the rubber gasket. But hopefully, if you don't mess up, it'll be good for any future cups and any kind of cups similar to that size that are like 3.5 inch. Now, when you look online, you'll see these Sioux Chiefs. You can find them for 3.5 inch. And you'll think, well, I'll just order one for the 3.5 inch glasses. These are kind of a poorly labeled item on like Amazon and eBay. It says they're 3.5 right on it. This is a 3.5 inch opening, and it will not go inside of there. This is a 3 3/4 spacer. These 3.5s are really a 4 inch. There's no difference between the 3.5 inch and the 4 inch you can buy in the stores. So don't fall for it. These, I think I got this one for like 15 bucks online. It costs more because they're listing it as an odd size, and it's a poor listing. It's really not a 3.5. It's still a 4 inch. So don't waste your money. Just get your 4 inch at your local hardware store, and you're only needing it for the rubber. I was trying to find if I can just find replacement rubber gaskets for those. I doubt it. I'm pretty sure you have to buy a whole new test plug to get that gasket, but it'd be nice just to be able to buy just these, but I haven't found them yet. But anyways, so for this it takes a little different setup. You have to take the rubber ring out of your standard 3-inch Oatly, and then now you'll have room to get it down inside of there. You really don't need this big long bolt, but I'm not gonna switch them. Go ahead and get that rubber gasket in there. A little easier said than done, but once you get it in there, you can tighten it up. And that's where this one is really good, is that squared flange on the Sioux Chief brand now sits flush on the glass and sits flush on the Oatly one. It's a really nice gasket for make your own gasket to fill any odd size of cup that you can't get a standard one to fit. So once you get one cut that fits a certain mug, keep it set aside and know which one you need to use. But if you find a different size mug that this gasket won't work with, or like a 2.5 inch that won't fit on the 2 or the 3, you can make them up with these Sioux Chief gaskets. Now what you also will find is that the stock setup, the handle is going to extend far enough to where it's going to run into your leveling rollers. So you have to make a little adjustment for that. We'll get this thing taken off. Now it comes with this little spacer block to kind of make the leveling rollers stick out past some of the mounting screws. And you'll get yourself a little block of wood. This is a little bit bigger than what this spacer was, and about 3/4 of an inch thick. And use that as a template to screw holes into it. And then what I used, they just happen to work. If you have a Ortur LaserMaster 2 Pro, the stock Z-axis, which I have replaced on mine with the upgraded Z-axis, but these two here were the positioning bolts for the stock Z-axis, and they are actually threaded the same as what the Ortur rotary is, that you can put your little block extension on there. Now to get even more room, turn it around backwards so the rollers are facing out, and then we'll get this here mounted onto the Ortur. So there you go. Now we have effectively moved these rollers out probably another 1.25 inches from where they originally were. And now you can get that mounted in there. It wasn't up high enough, so as it rotated, it was walking off the rollers. So there we go. It's actually probably mounted a little too high and gonna kind of push towards, but just for demonstration purposes, you can see not quite square on the x-axis either, but you'll see we now have room to clear the handle, and it's probably just barely clearing on the bottom side here. But I also have a couple magnets stuck in here. We can take one of them magnets out to gain a little more room. And there we go. Now we should have plenty of room to clear. I said, hopefully this kind of gets you going, kind of gives you some ideas on how to do different styles of cups, different size of glasses, different things that you can make with these test plugs. They're fairly cheap, and if you have the abilities to cut these discs, this is a very simple jig, and you can add a lot of different applications for this low budget rotary. Like I said, this isn't the fanciest rotary out there by far, but I believe on Ortur's website they have it on sale last time I looked for like $70. And for $70, it's a pretty good starter rotary. You can kind of play around with it. It's easy to hook up into the Ortur, and you can do a lot of things with it and just see if using a rotary is for you. You know, a lot of people are kind of intimidated when they first start with laser work, and trying to jump right onto the rotary is just another level of intimidation of, you know, how do I make it work? What do I do? But once you kind of got your laser work down and you kind of know how to do flat work, it is pretty fun to something else to mess with, and something else you can offer to your clients for doing mugs. You know, you can see I had a lot of distortions and errors in this image, but I thought it was because my rollers were dirty, and as I was cleaning it, I realized my tensioning nut on my X-axis had fallen off, so that laser head was moving back and forth, and it didn't even have any belt tension on it. So I'm amazed it did this good of quality on this image when there was not near enough belt tension actually on when I was running it. How I didn't notice that tensioning nut fell off at some point, but still worked very well. Once again, if you're interested in any of these products, getting the rotary, getting the upgraded Z-axis, maybe buying an Ortur laser if you're still kind of on the fence, and down in my description below I have a link to Ortur's website, and you can find this, getting it directly from Ortur. There are some other websites out there that can get you your stuff very good quality, usually have good delivery times. I've had very good luck with it going right from Ortur. This rotary and my Z-axis only took about 10 days to get it, but that was back when they first came out, and they might have had a lot of stock. I don't know what the availability of these things are right now, if they're back ordered and waiting for another production run. But if you're interested, check out the link down below. You can find the lasers, and then look at accessories, and you can find a lot of the different, like I said, the Z-axis, rotaries, and other things they offer to upgrade your tours. So thanks for watching. Hope you found it interesting, and I'll see you on the next video.